What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Debbie Royale YouTube channel. Today, we are talking Week 14 of the NFL. We're going to get into some draft talk. There's been some rumblings now that the Panthers are pretty locked into the first overall pick, which they have already sent to Chicago. There is a lot of quarterback debate in Chicago. We're going to dive into that. We're going to dive into some playoff pictures on the NFC side. We're going to give some game picks. We're going to give some against the grain fantasy starts as well. So stay tuned through the intro. Make sure you like and subscribe while that plays. All right, so you probably clicked into this video to find out if we were going to talk about Justin Fields and Caleb Williams. So obviously, as I mentioned, the current standings would suggest that the Bears are going to hold the first overall pick, therefore in position to draft Caleb Williams. But I think a lot of Bears fans feel that they have the franchise quarterback on the roster, and there's certainly a number of ways that the Bears can go. I think you can make a case on both sides. Randy, I'm curious to hear your take. We've talked about this a little bit, but probably not as in depth as we will all off season. But what are you thinking right now?
So, I mean, we're both like big believers in Justin Fields. We've seen him do some good things even just this year in the offense. Obviously, all of DJ Moore's best games are with Justin Fields at quarterback. I believe he has 4 or 5 wide receiver 1 finishes. So we know the offense is working, even with him still throwing limited amount of yards. He's running the ball efficiently. Hopefully we'll see that a bit this week against the Lions. But all that to be said, they're going to pick up his option next year, and that's his extra contract. It's not a lot of time to figure it out. And he truly, well, I think there's been some jumps he's made as a passer. We haven't seen anything like to where it needs to be for this team to solidify and love their thought process going into at least this week with Justin Fields as the starter for the rest of the time, at least the next decade. So that's where we get back into okay, you got the first overall pick. Right now you got the 5th overall pick. Yes, you could trade that first overall pick to bolster all these weapons with Justin Fields right now and keep that 5th pick. You might be able to get 2 top 5 picks in this draft and a lot more draft capital. But you could trade Justin Fields for a day 2 capital, maybe if it's a race, a late first, something like that, or a first down the line. It's just there's not a lot of contract years there. So it's a weird team building argument where the team building of, the madmen that we are is trade the pick, get everything you can. A lot of people are discussing this as a starting point of 3 first-round picks if it's outside the top 5. I mean, that's a lot of draft capital. They did the same kind of trade last year, got a player in it that's honestly their best offensive weapon. So we know that they're good negotiators in this aspect. There's a lot of great things there. You just have to hit on all those picks. You still have the top 5. You still get one of the blue chip talents in this year's class, which there are a few. And you could really do some things, but you reset the quarterback market with a guy that's been handpicked to be the guy for the last few years here, even with a down year, or you might want to stop with the running mobile quarterback that's trying to do all the hero ball and go Drake May. And I think that's where my issue is with this, is I think it's Justin Fields or Drake May for the Bears. Because I don't think they're sitting here with Justin Fields and saying, man, he's great on the run. We just can't get this offense going. He's holding the ball too long, trying to make the hero play. And then let's go to Caleb Williams, who is much, much worse with that, even if he might have a lot more tools than Justin Fields coming out of college right off the bat. So it's one of those things where, to me, I think if they're going quarterback, they're going more of a safe option. A guy that's going to sit in the pocket a bit more and be more of a leader of this offense in Drake May. So to me, that's why I think it's Justin Fields. I know I kind of rambling there, but it's my thought process on this thing with the 2 top 5 picks right now.
And that's why it's so hard right now, because like I said, those who have followed what we've done for a long time know how I feel about Justin Fields. I still think that he could be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I think probably his range of outcomes is going to sit him around like 12 to 15, if I had to guess. I think some of the inconsistencies probably going to stick around for a while. Um, that said, I don't think we've seen the best out of Justin Fields. But my argument for sticking with Justin Fields is if you look at the three best teams in the NFL right now, Miami, I think you can make an argument that Miami is, San Francisco, and Philadelphia, even though I think there's probably a tier break between those two at this point. I think you can make a case for Dallas, but those are my top three teams in the NFL right now still. Those teams are built fundamentally through dudes everywhere and good quarterbacks. Maybe not elite quarterbacks, and I know that'll probably rouse some people up. I think Jalen Hurts is a capable, above average, good to great quarterback, but I don't think he's in the elite tier that like your Allen, your Mahomes. And I think a lot of the argument is that you need a Mahomes to go win Super Bowls. And I think the ultimate goal is always going to be to win Super Bowls. I don't necessarily think the case, but what is very complicated about this is the contract. I think if Justin Fields and his agent go into this offseason even and say we want a contract extension, we want at least Daniel Jones money, but we're comfortable just taking Daniel Jones money. We know Justin has been pretty inconsistent. That's an easy keep Justin, build the team around him. You're paying $40 million a year. That's an affordable contract, I think, for a guy as talented as Justin Fields. And you hope that you can build everything around him so that some of those inconsistencies go away. The flip side of things is that Justin Fields' agent specifically wants him to get $50 million. And then you say, okay, well, then it's how comfortable are we with Caleb and Drake May? And I do want to. So Caleb Williams plays hero ball, but it's very important to know that the USC offense and wide receivers and offensive line were atrocious.
And defense.
He never played in a neutral game script ever in his career. He had to score 40 to 50 points every single game. I am very curious to see what Caleb Williams looks like in a neutral game script where, he's able to just go out there and hand the ball off a few times because that wasn't something that really they could do on a regular basis. I think Caleb Williams, so if you're watching on YouTube, Caleb Williams is the best quarterback prospect I've watched since we've started scouting, since, I would put him above Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Joe Burrow. Like, I think Caleb Williams is a dude, an absolute dude. That said, I think that you can make a very good case that some of his issues, maybe I'm putting too much weight on the offense, the wide receivers, the offensive line, and maybe some of that holding the ball does trickle in. And then you're saying, okay, like you said, is it Drake May or Justin Fields? Justin Fields' ceiling is so much higher than what Drake May's is, in my opinion. I actually don't think Drake May's in Caleb Williams' tier, so I don't even think that that's a consideration. So this is the most complicated win-win situation that I've ever seen a team be in because it's also there's some win-lose to it because I think the Bears faithful, Bears fan base is very, very behind their quarterback, even through all the inconsistencies. And I don't think Chicago has seen that for a long time. I think you risk losing some fans by making the wrong decision. Now, if they go out, Caleb Williams does win them a Super Bowl, I don't think they care that much about Justin Fields and what happened through his 3 years here. But yeah, it's a very complex situation that's worth talking about. We're going to talk about it all the time this offseason too.
Yeah, and that was kind of like my issue with it because I also do think my grade's nowhere near final. I do think he's going to be among my top, easily in my top 5 quarterbacks that we've scouted in the last, oh Lord, what is it, 6 years? I want to say 5, 6, 7 years here. Where Drake May, like, there's a lot of projection there. He does a lot of good things, and I do think he's going to be pretty high up on that. Definitely in comparison to the last couple of years. I think he's going to be around our, CJ Stroud tier, Bryce Young tier, and because that's basically the same if I remember right from my grades last year. So, and that's a great thing because I think his best case scenario is what CJ Stroud's doing right now, which is what we likened, to Joe Burrow was the ceiling for CJ Stroud. So that's a good ceiling to have and a safe floor because it's the guy that can stay in the pocket and deal. And that's why I kind of put him in there. And I think that's why the NFL is putting Drake May way up into that tier. So
Mhm.
I think for me, I think it makes the most sense, even though I think it's just me loving to do all the trades, is keep Justin Fields. And let's make this work because right now, the Patriots are not going to be at 2 for long after their win last night. I think they're one of the teams that could definitely trade up. Cardinals, they're going to stick with Kyler. Washington, you'd think they'd stick with Hal, but maybe new coach. You got a new owner, new quarterback. Go along that guy with that guy makes sense to me. And then you're back to the Bears. So now we're, Giants trading up, Titans probably not trading up, Saints maybe trading up, Tampa maybe, Vegas maybe. Then you're all the way down to Pittsburgh. There's you're limiting your options. You're almost hoping it's New England, and you just trade down. Maybe not for 3 firsts by any means. Maybe just the number 2 pick, a first next year, and a second next year, something like that. Just an equivalent, and then you're getting Marvin Harrison, and then a key defensive player, a key offensive lineman at 5, and we can really roll with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's
can't wait for that episode that we.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of fun fixing the franchise fix episodes that we do on this. I think one thing I don't want to get out of here because I meant to mention it while I was on my spiel. It's worth noting that Chicago is one of the toughest markets to play quarterback in because of their history. And it's also worth noting how well Justin Fields has handled that despite everything that he's had to go through over the last 3 years now.
And he made one mistake the whole time.
One mistake, calling out his coaches the one time, and then immediately correcting it. That's the interesting part is I think he knew he messed up in how he worded that. That said, there are certain leadership qualities that quarterback in Chicago has to have in order to be successful that I think we know Justin has. Maybe we haven't seen the on-field results entirely yet, but I think that's something that Ryan Poles and company are definitely going to have to weigh this offseason as well, because there are certainly some questions about Caleb Williams. I think they're garbage, but they're there. The NFL is questioning him crying in the stands and, his unwillingness to talk to the media and stuff. That's not going to fly in Chicago. And I think that will matter a bit to NFL teams. So we'll see.
It's almost kind of the stuff that's like, man, I know the league would hate it, but if he was in New England, I mean, he ain't gonna have to talk to the media more than he absolutely has to with Bill.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Bill's gonna train him from the get-go to not have to deal with that stuff as much as possible. I mean, and hey, it'll lead to a broadcasting career when his career's over. Because not that Tom probably couldn't have done it himself, but I guarantee you that helped a ton dealing with the media all those years through Bill. So. We'll see how this goes. I do think it's going to be a fun segment when we finally do it. And I can almost guarantee you what you're probably going to take one side, I'm going to take the other so we can experiment, even if we both have the same viewpoint.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the other thing. Caleb Williams, really freaking good. So I get it either way. I get it. All right. We need to move on. But before we do, make sure you head over to patreon.com/the We've got a lot of good stuff going over there. The transfer portal is hot right now. NFL draft declarations are hot. Senior Bowl acceptance, accepted invites are going hot right now. That's all happening in our Discord. We're also working on the Debbie draft guide that we're releasing in January. This is probably news. I don't even know if the patrons know this yet, but we're working on that. We've got a ton of stuff. We've got rankings and things like that. So head over to patreon.com/DevyRoyale. It's really just $3 a month to get into that tier. You can join the Discord if you want. If that's all you want for $1, there's another tier as well. So $3 a month will get you all the goods though. So patreon.com/DevyRoyale. Join today. All right. Next topic. The NFC playoff picture's shaping up to be a fun one down the stretch. We've got a 4-way tie for the 6th seed right now. And the first team that I want to discuss it's the Los Angeles Rams. They came out and they kind of beat the tar out of the Browns last week. They did Sean McVay's stuff and kind of exposed what has been a really good defense, and they kind of just moved the ball down the field. Matthew Stafford was incredible. The Rams right now are 6-6. They're the 8th seed, and they are tied with the 6th seed. They're part of that 4-team tie. So, Randy, do you think that the Rams, I guess the question in our sheet is, are the Rams a playoff contender? Clearly, if they're tied for the 6th seed.
Yeah.
Do you think the Rams are going to make the playoffs is the question.
No, but it's very close. Really, so what it's coming down to, the 6 teams quickly. Vikings and Packers are in the playoffs right now with matchups and records and everything. And then the Rams and the Seahawks are also tied at 6-6. And the Buccaneers and Saints are the next teams at 5-7. There's 2 other teams at 4-8. But until they go on a bit of a win streak here, a la Bears, we're going to wait to add them to this conversation. And that's where it kind of goes. With those teams, at least the NFC South teams, there's a chance if one of them can kind of get it going that, between them and the Falcons, they'd have a shot at the 7th seed. But they're all really fighting for that 4 seed in their division. So if we're getting rid of them, then it's Vikings, Packers, Rams, Seahawks. To me, that's Vikings and Seahawks is my favorites there. And it's very close though, and that's going to mean that the Seahawks are going to have to beat the Rams on this comeback game after they've already lost the Rams. So that's going to be a big game there. Obviously, Vikings and Packers, I believe, still have to play once. Do they play each other twice already? I can't remember. But that's kind of the thing. I think Dobbs can kind of right the ship this week after a lot of tipped interceptions before the bye week, and he's going to show a pretty good showing. And Packers have been up and down. Hot of late, I think it comes back to reality and they drop out.
I think that's fair. I will say the Rams' remaining schedule is kind of okay. So Ravens this week, not okay. Probably going to lose that one, but you never know. The Ravens have shown some inconsistency as well. Commanders, Saints, Giants, a nice little 3-game stretch there. So I think this team can get to 9 wins, and then the final game is against the 49ers. And so the Seahawks and Rams did play, I think, both early. Yeah, it must have been early in the season. I
thought they were the last game, but they're playing the 49ers last. So that means Seahawks are playing Cardinals last week.
Right, which gives them the edge there. So I agree. I think the Seahawks are in. I think the Packers are the other team. I think the Packers are going to keep this hot streak going. Jordan Love's been balling, man. That was almost a topic on today's show, is just how good he's been. That said, the Rams are a competitive football team, and I didn't necessarily expect that looking at that roster before the season. So good for them, good for Sean McVay, good for Stafford for still having it, because dude can still sling it. I just hope he stays healthy down the stretch.
So the Packers play the Giants this week. If they win that, it knocks the Giants out of the playoffs. They were one of the 4-8 teams. Then they play the Bucks, could knock the Bucks out of contention. Then they get a win against the Panthers. Then they play the Vikings for playoff positioning or just a seed in general. And then the Bears, who would need to go on a run here and then win that week, I believe, in Lambeau.
It is. That said, I want to mention that game specifically because do you remember last year when the Lions were knocked out of the playoffs during the 4 p.m. slate, and then the Sunday night game was Lions-Packers, and everyone was like, oh, the Packers are definitely getting in the playoffs now. Aaron Rodgers was still out there, and then the Lions came and smacked them. That's what I hope happens with the Bears and Packers. I hope the Packers don't get in because the Bears smack them in the final game of the season, which I think could potentially get flexed because if the Bears start playing well.
Yeah, that last week of games are all still to be determined because they have to change them where I think they're going to try and avoid that situation if they can again this year.
This is true.
Jesus. See, that's the thing. I do think the Packers have possibly the easiest schedule remaining. So,
and that's the tough part is I think, and you start to factor in LaFleur's undefeated in December. He's got 4 more of these games in December. So if he keeps that going, I think it's a little fluky. I think that there's a chance that they drop one of these. Bucks kind of stands out as a kind
And
of
that's the
let up.
thing. The Packers are facing teams that are trying to fight for their playoff hopes. So that might be the difference right there. Vikings get the Raiders, the Bengals, the Lions, Packers, and Lions. And that's if they can get 2 wins here, I think they're pretty locked in. And then everyone's fighting for one spot, and that's going to be hectic.
That's
We'll,
what we love.
yeah,
The AFC is similar, by the way.
we'll revisit this in 2 weeks and see how it's going.
Yeah, we will certainly do that. We're gonna skip this last topic. We're running out of time. We talked way too long about Caleb Williams and Justin Fields, so we're gonna get
The
into our
shock
game
of
previews.
everyone that knows us.
Right? It's funny. I got a reply. I tweeted about this exact scenario, and someone was like, "Oh, look at that! Another Christian Williams, Justin Fields tweet." And I said, "Dude, I support the Bears. I don't know what you want. Like, I
Yeah,
don't."
it's tough.
It's like everyone tweets about their team that they support, but whatever. So that we talked about it more. Shout out that guy. Okay. First game that we're going to preview is the Seahawks and 49ers game, which interesting lines. Lines started at -11. 49ers were 11-point favorites, and the over-under was 44.5. And now they've just added 2 points to both. 49ers are 13-point home favorites, and the over-under is 46.5. Strange. Do they know something that we don't? That's what I'm worried about. I don't. I
My
don't
immediate
understand this.
concern is Charbonnet and Walker not playing? Is that what's going on? And
right,
do
but
they
like,
know?
Would that
I
move
think
the
it
line
affects
2
the
points?
line. I do think it affects the line for sure.
But like a half a point or like a point maybe.
They're not without both of them. They can't run the ball at all. Not that it's going to be smooth sailing by any means against the 49ers rush defense.
That's my point.
Where as of last week, the 49ers took over the Eagles spot as the worst passing defense in the league. So only because both teams, you cannot run the ball at them, so you have to throw. So I do think this is another shootout, and that's why it's so crazy to me, because in these situations, we've seen Geno actually thrive this year, including last week. These are the only games he has thrived, is when he has to throw the ball. It's the volume putting him over the top, which is usually what we want for running backs and wide receivers, not quarterbacks, but we'll take it. And I do think the Seahawks cover here. Yeah. I mean, I don't think they win, but I think they cover. And if Geno plays lights out, they could win here. This is closer than 13 points for sure.
Yeah. My betting advice would be to bump that line down to like 6.5 and then still hit the 49ers to cover. Because I mean, I think this is going to be a 1-score game. 6, maybe 7.5. The odds are probably pretty good on 7.5 just in case, but yeah, I think this is another Jackson Smith and Jigba game. Last week, Seahawks are coming off a mini bye as well. Like, this game was last Thursday. They have extra rest. I don't understand this line, so I would go hammer the Seahawks, which means 49ers are going to win by 40 probably. But Jackson Smith and Jigba had that catch that was ruled not a catch, but then on Sunday there was the exact same situation. It was ruled a catch, and so the NFL is rocking out with their great officiating this year. But if Jackson Smith and Jigba catches that ball, we're talking about him a lot differently this week. I do think that he is their secret weapon of sorts, where I think this is a huge game from him. I think he kind of keeps them in it. I think DK can continue to have success. I just think Seahawks cover, and I think we hit the over kind of easily, honestly.
Yeah, I would think so, simply because the Seahawks are going to have to pass the ball. Unless the 49ers can somehow get like 80% of the clock, that's the only way it's going to hit the under to me. And DK, kind of famously, these are the type of matchups that he struggles against. Should be a lot of zone coverage here from the 49ers. That's obviously Lockett and now JSN special. So it's just, I mean, we saw last week, DK can score a touchdown on a slant route for 70 yards. It's hard you can't bench DK, but I think this is a good enough week for a flex play for the other two. And 49ers to win. Definitely have to cover.
Yeah, for sure. Next game, that's probably not the game of the week. I think we can. There's so
3
many
games of the weeks, buddy.
Yeah, Bills versus Chiefs.
Times?
I think so, yes. Please check that while I'm
Sorry,
running
I had
through
a
this
stroke
list.
there for a second. All right. 3-0. Well, now, sorry, Central time here.
This is garbage.
Seahawks first 49ers 3:05, Bills Chiefs 3:25, and then Eagles Cowboys Sunday night.
Okay, close enough. I'll take the 20 minutes of extra
I got two
time.
TVs for this exact reason.
Yeah, that's fair. Bills Chiefs next game we're talking about. Chiefs are only 1-point home favorites. Over under is 49. The Bills are out of the playoffs right now. The Chiefs have been sputtering for a while now. Their offense can't really get it going. There are a lot of Matt Nagy jokes out there, which I appreciate a little bit. This wide receiver core has been a problem for the Chiefs, and I think Travis Kelce has started his decline. Just based on some of the stuff that we've seen. You know, it might be a little slower than most players, but he's not dominating the way that he could, even without receivers in the past. So this one is interesting. I obviously think on paper this looks like a start everyone type of game, but both of these defenses have played well at times and really well at times. I think the Chiefs defense is one of the best in the league. That said, I think this is a fine Gabe Davis flex week. I get nervous doing that, but I think that he's going to have to go to his secondary and third options, he being Josh Allen, in order for the Bills to stay competitive in this game. That said, I think the Bills are on life support, but I think the Chiefs win this game because I think they're also on life support in a different way.
I don't think we're allowed to use that term with the Bills, but yeah, I don't know, buddy. That's tough. I was giving a little
over on the game as well.
Over on a lot of things there. Yeah, and the Chiefs were 3-point favorites at home with Pacheco out. I don't know if that's the only factor. I think Vegas is loving the running backs this week. Dropped to 1 here. Teams. The Bills were kind of the pioneers of the defense against the Chiefs. You're not beating us deep. And that was where last year and every year before, Travis Kelce was able to carve up the Chiefs in total last year. All the receivers able to carve up along these short routes and make plays. This year, the teams that are stopping them are not doing that. So that's where I'm curious how this week goes. The Bills are famously only 2 high safeties with, safeties coming in every now and then, but they play over the top completely. I'm curious if they adapt what the NFL is adapting to this week. And if they do, I think they can win this game and revive their chances in the playoffs. Chiefs continue to slip in a division that they're allowed to slip in right now. And I think everyone can kind of live in this situation. Damn it.
You said revive too, bro.
I know, right? This is tough.
Shout out to Marham.
Shout out to Mar. And I do think, like you said, the Bills should have a good shot here. The major storylines for players who are playing, Kincaid's been killing it. Dawson Knox has a chance to play this week. That might limit his effectiveness. I still think he's definitely startable, but I think it limits the effectiveness there. Gabe Davis, this is the type of game that he should explode, which means he won't. But because you say that and put him on the bench, he will. And that's where Gabe Davis lies, and I hate him. So the real question is Diggs going to come and actually do something this week? That's my real fantasy question of the week.
Man, I hope so. But also, that's the thing is like this Chiefs defense has played lights out. I think that there was the joke. I think Tyreek Hill said it before the Chiefs game that when they played, you take away Travis, you take away their whole offense. I think the same is true right now for the Bills offense with Stephon Diggs because they really struggle when they can't get Diggs going. This is an interesting game. I think this is going to be one of the more telling games this week. I think there are a lot of big games, but I think whatever this outcome is, if the Chiefs win, I think we can maybe put them back in that elite tier. But the Bills are the best 500 team that I've ever seen. Like this team is legitimately very good with an MVP candidate at quarterback. I know people aren't talking about him that way at this point, but he's playing incredibly well. So it's tough, but I lean the Chiefs just because they're at home and they tend to win those games. So
I'm going to take the Bills just because they know that they have to win this game, and this is against their biggest rival. And I hope it doesn't go into overtime because since we made that rule change, Josh Allen cannot win an overtime game.
I know it. All right, last game. So our third topic of the storylines at the beginning was going to be, NFC East comes down to this week. The reason for that, Eagles versus Cowboys. Cowboys are 3.5-point favorites in this one. Over under is 51.5. Dak's playing at an MVP level. The Eagles really kind of struggled last week against the 49ers. And so when we start to talk about, well, how did the 49ers do that? I think Dallas has that mold already. I think they kind of knew how to slow down the Eagles offense. I think this could, I do think the Eagles are a very, very good football team. Dallas at home with how they're playing and with how these two teams are trending currently, I think Dallas gets it done. That said, this is a very close game scoring wise. I think the Eagles defense is going to be able to hold up a little bit. Dak tends to sometimes shy away in these games too. So I'm curious to see how he plays. I think we hit the under in this one. 51.5 seems like a lot for two fantastic defensive lines.
Yeah, and that's kind of my thinking as well. I think they put that line there because they know both these teams are going to struggle to run the ball, and that means Dak's going to have to play at an MVP level. I think Dak is going to truly cement his statement for that claim this year of MVP with the win here in prime time. They honestly, they had a really good chance to win the last one. A lot of people think they should have. The Eagles came out with it. Eagles are coming off a rough loss against a top contender, something the Cowboys know all too well with the 49ers. And I think they're real and they can take this one. I'm not sure 3.5. I can't really give the take the points or not there, but I think it's an over because I think Dak has an absolute star performance.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Very difficult games to pick this week. I do want to throw that out there, except Seahawks line. And like I said, that means the 49ers are going to blow them out. So
one of them is going to be a trap for fantasy and DFS. I can promise you that. These are going to be three, especially DFS, of the games. Well, not Eagles and Cowboys, but the other two are going to be heavily played this week with, and it's one of those where you might want to just take a piece and run and hope you pick the right one. So
yeah,
I'm hoping all three are incredible because that early slate of games is not the best.
No. I will be streaming the Bears game because they're in the early time slot.
Exactly.
All right. Before we get out of here, we're going to quickly give our Against the Grain fantasy starts. If this is your first show and you've stuck with us this long, these are guys that you shouldn't always slate into your lineups, but could be worth a flex play this week to varying degrees. There are certainly some differences in how we've picked players. Last week, I picked Jaden Reed, who had a quieter game, and Randy picked A.T. Perry, who actually was a good flex play. He should have had a bigger game, but good picks, I think, on the whole for the year. Randy, who's your Against the Grain fantasy start this week?
Yeah, so like you said, I went A.T. Perry. I've been going like more chaotic every week. I'm going to go back towards neutral this week with Chuba Hubbard. Highest snap percentage of the season last week, 25 carries, 104 yards, 0 targets is the only little concern there. But this is a good matchup. The Saints run defense has been good over the years, but they just got carved up last week. I think it continues again. I think he gets 20 plus opportunities. And over the last few weeks, those kind of opportunities is equated to touchdowns and a top at least 20 fantasy performance for running backs. I think he's a very strong RB2 this week and has a chance, if he can fall in the end zone at least, to be an RB1.
That's fair. I like it. I'm the one going chaotic this week. I'm going extremely chaotic. I'm going Xavier Gibson from the New York Jets.
Nuclear.
Most people probably don't even know who that is unless you we're sifting through box scores. When I picked this, I didn't even realize how good of a game he had last week. 5 catches, 77 yards, was the first Jets wide receiver to go over 70 yards, not named Garrett Wilson. on the season. He's got 5 straight weeks up over 40 snaps, and he's been in the 70% of snaps each week. The Jets are going back to Zach Wilson. It's an important piece because I think when you incorporate the fact that that's an upgrade at quarterback, no matter how you slice it, even if he's not good, he's an upgrade from what they trotted out there last week. And then you factor in, okay, Xavier Gipson got involved. How can we combine those two things? I think we could see a big game, like another 5-catch, 70 yards, but maybe he gets in the end zone this week. I'm excited to see what he can do. For those that don't know, I believe he was an undrafted free agent. I think they signed him after the draft. Just a very talented kid with a lot of upside, a lot of athleticism. He showed out in training camp, but really didn't get a lot of run until recently. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I'm going to plop him into a DFS lineup this week. I don't have him on any rosters because most of you probably don't. But if you're in a deep dynasty league or something like that, I might even play him in my flex this week.
Yeah, he's currently wide receiver 75 on Fantasy Pros for the week.
Mm-hmm.
I say that to say that's incredibly low. I will say Parker Washington's at 73, which again seems pretty low after last week, and then the Christian Kirk injury news today. So for me, I think it's a fun choice. Obviously, increase in attempts last week. You should see an increase in passing attempts, period, this week. The Texans, we'll see how they do. Obviously, it's tough to throw against the Jets. The Texans are best at throwing the ball. But in the one matchup that it was this kind of matchup earlier in the year for the Texans, they leaned on the run and tried to run the clock. That's my concern. But here's the other thing. Xavier Gipson, the Hard Knocks darling of the undrafted wide receivers, is also their returner. So, he could get 5 catches for a little bit of yards and bust off a huge return and absolutely win your week for you. So I'm down to roll with it, especially in DFS, because there's a lot of people that are going to be punting at tight end this week. And I'm really looking at Kelsey or Kittle.
Yeah.
So I could use this stone fucking minimum. Xavier Gipson, who does not deserve to be a stone minimum at this point.
Yeah. I certainly hope he busts one off. So, all right, we're going to get out of here on that note. Thank you guys for watching. If you stuck with us the whole show, make sure you leave a comment. Talk about Caleb Williams, talk about Justin Fields, talk about anything we talked about in the comments. I'll hop in there and talk with you there. If you're on the podcast forum, make sure you subscribe to that. Leave us a review if you'd like. We will be back next week. Randy, do you have anything else to add? Sorry, I didn't ask you.
Nah, let's go.
Go Bears. Shout out Justin Fields. Hope he has a good game. And we'll talk to you guys next week.